Haha, it's me again, everyone. Today we're meeting a dinosaur so strange that scientists once had no idea what it actually was.
Just look at those claws. They look like something designed by a movie monster. If you saw this animal from a distance, you might think it was one of the deadliest predators ever. After all, some of these claws were nearly 1 meter long. That's longer than many kitchen knives. Actually, much longer. So naturally, scientists assumed this creature must have been a terrifying hunter. There was just one problem with that idea.
Therizinosaurus wasn't a predator at all.
Those giant claws belonged to a plant eater. And that raises a very important question. Why would a plant eater need claws this enormous?
Therizinosaurus was one of the most unusual dinosaurs ever discovered. With its long neck, feathered body, and in 1948, scientists discovered enormous fossil claws in Mongolia.
These claws were so unusual that researchers had no idea what creature they belonged to.
In fact, the first scientists who studied them made a surprising mistake.
They thought the claws belonged to a giant turtle.
Which sounds strange today, but with only a few fossils available, nobody knew the truth. Years later, new discoveries began to reveal a very different story. In 1948, scientists discovered enormous fossil claws in Mongolia. Scientists realized they were looking at one of the strangest dinosaurs ever discovered.
But the biggest surprise was still waiting to be uncovered.
By now, you're probably wondering the same thing scientists wondered for decades. Why were the claws so enormous? Some of these claws measured nearly 1 meter in length.
That's longer than the forearm of many adult humans. At first glance, they look like weapons built for a super predator. But appearances can be very misleading. One popular theory suggests the claws helped pull branches closer while feeding. In other words, they may have worked like giant gardening tools.
Not quite as terrifying as people expected, but still incredibly useful.
Of course, that doesn't mean the claws were harmless.
Because even if they evolved for feeding, few predators would want to get anywhere near them. For years, scientists struggled to understand exactly what Therizinosaurus was.
The claws suggested a dangerous predator. But the head told a different story.
Instead of sharp hunting teeth, it had features better suited for eating plants.
The more fossils scientists discovered, the stranger the picture became. It had the long neck of a browser and the body of a giant plant eater.
Everything pointed toward a vegetarian lifestyle. Which means one of the most intimidating dinosaurs ever discovered probably spent most of its day eating leaves. That's quite a twist.
Giant claws, but no interest in hunting prey. Nature had created an animal that looked terrifying, but lived a surprisingly peaceful life.
But peaceful doesn't mean defenseless. And those claws may still have had another important purpose.
Around 7th million years ago, Therizinosaurus lived in what is now Mongolia. Back then, the landscape looked very different from the dry regions we see today. Rivers, forests, and fertile plains provided an abundance of food. For a giant plant eater, this was an ideal place to live. Each day likely began with a simple goal: find enough food to support a massive body. And that required a lot of eating, probably far more than most people imagine. Therizinosaurus was not alone. Many other dinosaurs shared its environment. Some were harmless, others could pose a serious threat. In the age of dinosaurs, danger was rarely very far away. Which brings us back to the question: if these claws weren't for hunting, what exactly were they for? One of the most popular theories is surprisingly simple. The claws may have helped pull vegetation closer while feeding. Think of them as giant prehistoric gardening tools. Not exactly the exciting answer people expect. But evolution often favors usefulness over drama. Another possibility is that the claws were used for display. After all, large animals often use impressive features to attract attention. Perhaps those claws helped impress rivals or potential mates. But there is one theory that almost everyone agrees on. The claws would have been extremely useful for self-defense. Whatever their original purpose, these remarkable claws became one of the most distinctive features of any dinosaur ever discovered. And sooner or later, Therizinosaurus may have needed every advantage it could get. Most days in the life of Therizinosaurus were peaceful. But peace rarely lasted forever in the age of dinosaurs. Somewhere nearby, another giant was moving through the landscape. Meet Tarbosaurus, one of the largest predators in ancient Asia. Bigger, stronger, and built for hunting, it ruled the food chain of its environment. Like many large herbivores, Therizinosaurus spent most of its time searching for food and moving through its environment. Large predators rarely waste energy on unnecessary risks. And few animals looked more difficult to approach than Therizinosaurus.
Sometimes the smartest decision in nature is simply keeping your distance.
So what makes Therizinosaurus so fascinating today? Part of the answer lies in those incredible claws. But the rest of the answer comes from how unusual the entire animal really was. A giant plant eater with the appearance of a monster. An animal that challenged many of our assumptions about dinosaurs. The more scientists learned, the stranger it seemed.
Yet every new fossil helped reveal another piece of the puzzle. Today, Therizinosaurus remains one of the most recognizable dinosaurs ever discovered. Not because it was the biggest, not because it was the fastest, but because it may have been the strangest dinosaur that ever lived.